showcasing gardens and nature in the valley and beyond. This is Let's Grow There, a WKBN Plus exclusive. Let's dig in. Hello and welcome back to Let's Grow There. I'm your host, Laurel Stone, and today I am joined again by Nick Deemer of the Plant Bar. Nick, go ahead, tell the audience a little bit about yourself in case they don't remember and some of the topics we'll be discussing today.
Hi there, my name's Nick Deemer. I have a degree in horticulture from Kent State. My wife and I own the Plant Bar in Boardman on Market Street. We sell houseplants, tropicals, carnivorous plants, trees, shrubs, all kinds of plant material. Today we're going to be talking about carnivorous plants, a little bit about fruit trees, some tropical fruit trees, and how to take care of them.
Absolutely. Now, you keep certain carnivorous plants stocked in your store, so what are some of the options that you carry?
Yes, whenever people think of carnivorous plants, the first one that pops to mind is always the Venus flytrap. It's a wonderful carnivorous plant, good for eating larger bugs. It doesn't have to just be flies. They can eat, stink bugs, spiders, anything that kind of crosses their path and goes into the trap. I love putting on the demonstration for whenever kids and customers come in and you tickle the trap and the mouths close. It's really cool to see plants actually move live in action, I suppose. But other carnivorous plants like Nepenthes, tuberous pitcher plants, are another carnivorous species of plants, I would say. It's like a hollow tube, and bugs go into the tubes and they don't come out. There's also hanging pitcher plants that kind of look like looks like a lemonade kind of pitcher. And same concept there, full of a syrupy kind of liquid. Bugs go in, don't come out. Cool, creepy, cool. And then there's also Sundews, Butterworts. Those two are more of a kind of like a sticky trap type of deal. So bugs fly into them and they get stuck to it. And the whole family category of plants is very neat.
You didn't think everything was going to be in the studio today, did you? No. Today, we are doing a hybrid where we're also at the Plant Bar showing off some of those plants that we talked about.
They only get a limited number of closes, and after they are done closing and they have eaten so much, they will actually die back down to it, and the goal for it is to start putting out some new ones right there. So yeah, they've got some new growth on the way.
When they die, is it something you want to cut back, or does it just fertilize the plants?
Sometimes whenever they get to be like this kind of black and squishy, sometimes if you have any resistance, I'll leave it alone, but sometimes you can literally just kind of wiggle them off. At that point, that kind of keeps them a little more clean, a little more sanitary, but even if they're starting to turn yellow, I'll wait until they actually turn that full black color, so then you know that their job is done.
For these plants, they are house plants. Now, because we're in Ohio, right? Naturally, they're more tropical, so here we have to keep them inside. Is that right?
Not necessarily. They are tropical, so you can keep them outside spring, summer, fall, but they don't like the cold, so just bring them in for the winter.
For the people who do keep them inside, do we have enough bugs naturally in our house to feed them, or do you have to supplement that?
Depends on the house, I suppose. My house is on the older side, and I definitely get my, spiders and creatures and whatnot. And if you do find a unfortunate fella, like, hey, buddy, I got a place for you to go. But also, I also deal with a group of people who are very, very much so into carnivorous plants, collectors, I suppose we'll call them. You can actually feed them things like mealworms, like how you would with iguanas, chameleons, stuff like that, turtles. So you can supplement them. Generally speaking, I tell people let them catch whatever they catch because you can play with them too much.
What are some signs that they're sick and in need of supplementing?
So one thing to know about pretty much any kind of carnivorous plant is they're all swamp plants or bog plants. So they do like to be pretty consistently wet. They do not like to really dry out. So it's more of I've never noticed a nutrient deficiency from not catching any bugs. It's usually rather the lack of watering and also the kind of water you use as well too. The carnivorous plants that I have at the store, I make sure I give them actually rainwater because that seems to actually make them grow. Since they are swamp plants or bog plants, and why they are carnivorous is because they grow in nutrient low soil. So they like to be pretty consistently wet, and that's kind of boggy. They don't really get a lot of nutrients, and why they eat bugs is because that's where they're going to get their fertilizer from. So to get them to grow, you can't really give them like a Miracle Grow water soluble fertilizer. It'll burn them. So, but make sure you give them some nice water, rainwater, distilled water. Sometimes they do not like my tap water.
Now, with Venus flytraps, years ago when I was on vacation in North Carolina, I went to a state park, and it said that was the only place where the Venus flytraps were native, and that it was really, really strict. You could not stray off the path. You could not take any Venus flytraps out of the park. So tell me about how they spread and kind of the ethical implications of this too.
Absolutely. North Carolina is where Venus flytraps are actually native to, which is kind of, North Carolina can get slightly cold, so the Venus flytraps do turn into a form of dormancy, but they can't get as cold as they would here in Youngstown, Ohio. That is one thing. But it is really cool to think that they are native to North Carolina. Yeah. As far as, yes, they are an endangered species. Especially where they grow in the wild, because they have the regular stresses of, deforestation and people building and stuff like that too, and also poaching as well too. However, in the wild they are endangered, but because they have been propagated so much and cared for, outside of their native habitat, they're not endangered. I order probably a case of them about once a month or so, and they're actually coming out with all kinds of new different varieties, which is a really cool concept, because in the wild you have your genetically different ones. One might have a more red trap rather than a green trap, and you'll have your variances and whatnot, but they're actually coming out with some pretty fancy varieties of them. So people collecting them is kind of actually preserving the species.
So there is definitely a demand for carnivorous plants then.
Oh, absolutely. It's a wild, fun family to grow, and they contribute, I suppose. Certain carnivorous plants are better at catching certain bugs rather than other ones. Like if you have like the fungus gnats and stuff like that, things like Butterworts, Sundews, even the larger pitcher plants too, those are wonderful for catching the smaller bugs, whereas a Venus flytrap actually has to be triggered to close. So a small little bug isn't really going to trigger it to close. So kind of depends on what bugs you want to catch. And even if you have a patio and stuff like that, you can make a nice little bog garden or a little dish garden full of carnivorous plants, and they help fight the bug problem.
Are there any downsides to carnivorous plants?
Downsides, they are a little bit of maintenance, I would say, just because they do like to be pretty consistently wet. They do not really like to dry out, and they do take special water, I guess I'll call it. I just give them rainwater, or even distilled water. So those are kind of the only two stipulations of growing carnivorous plants. Other than that, as long as you keep them wet, it's a pretty easy family to grow.
You have to, if you have them inside over the winter and then you move them outside when it gets warmer, do you have to harden them off like you would seedlings?
Essentially, yes. And I say that's more of to acclimate them, that's more of like a sunlight type of deal. Because, I think I told you last time, it's like the first nice day of summer, everyone goes outside, gets their sunburn and whatnot. The only thing with plants is they don't reheal, they stay burnt, or they put out new leaves. So yes, you do want to acclimate them to, first day bring them outside for 20 minutes, next day 40 minutes, day after an hour or so, until you just kind of keep them outside.
How much sunlight, or even if you have them inside, do you need grow lights for them? How much do they need?
They like a fair amount of sun, good bright light. They don't need direct sun all day. They do not want direct sun all day, I would say, but a decently bright light. If you do have a grow light inside, it would be beneficial.
Talk to me a little bit about pitcher plants now.
Mm-hmm. Pitcher plants, so there's the hanging pitcher plants, one of my favorites. And what's fun about the hanging pitcher plants is they grow pretty fast, so you can actually see them do something. Flytraps and nepenthes are a much slower growing variety, whereas the hanging pitcher plants, they can turn into a pretty good sized plant in a short amount of time. I had a customer bring one in for a repot probably 2, maybe 3 months ago, and it was probably the size of my torso. It was like a small bush. the pitchers on it were the size of like, like a liter pitcher of lemonade. And there's also many different varieties of them too, where the pitchers can look different, the leaves can look different. It's a fun one to grow because they get much larger.
And you can grow them inside, and even if they're huge, there's enough bugs to sustain them? Because that would be my concern, is it not getting enough bugs and me killing it?
A lot of people think that bugs are a necessity, and yes, that is where they get their fertilizer, but I'm more concerned about them staying wet, keeping them wet, rather than, because they'll catch anything that goes into the pitcher, they can use wherever they grow native and natural once they get to be such a large size, which is mostly rainforest scenario, I suppose, but they can catch small birds, they can catch frogs, they can catch lizards, any creature that kind of goes in there. It's not a picky between bugs or it's fertilizer.
Would it be happier outside then, where it has a better chance of catching this than indoors?
As speaking from the bug perspective, yes, just because you are going to have more natural things wandering to it. And carnivorous plants actually emit I suppose I'll call it a pheromone that attracts bugs, actually. So things get interested, they get too close, they fall in.
Is there any risk at all for humans, little kids? Like, what if a kid sticks their finger in there or something?
No, other than don't eat them, I would say. They're not consumable, I would say. But no, a fly trap isn't going to take your finger off or anything. But it is funny whenever kids come in, they go, I don't want to touch it, it's going to eat me. But they are, I'll have to double check if they're pet friendly or not. I do believe Nepenthes, the tuberous pitcher plant, I do believe they are pet friendly, which is kind of backwards from what you would think.
Yeah, tropical plants, especially because they're colorful. And a lot of times with colorful things, that kind of represents toxicity, at least in nature. From when I talk about the bugs and insects, you want to avoid those. That's exciting because for a lot of us here in the valley and at the station are pet owners. So that's one of my qualifications for plants in my house. So I never had them because I didn't think I could.
Yep,
so that'd be cool.
I'm going to have to double check on that just to make sure. Every, of course, family species is different as far as pet friendly and whatnot as well, too. But pet friendly, but not bug friendly.
What are some other plants that we haven't talked about that are carnivorous?
The other ones, well, so like Sundews and Butterworts would be the other ones. They are, it's kind of like, looks like a fuzzy plant, but at the ends of the hairs of the fuzz are like, they look like little dewdrops, and they're actually like little sticky pads. So bugs will actually fly into the little hairs and get stuck in them, and then slowly over time, you can't see it move as fast as like a Venus flytrap, but for sundews, like they'll actually slowly kind of like curl them up, and they get stuck to them kind of just like a sticky trap type of deal. And kind of the same concept with butterworts as well too. They just have a much different look, not as hairy, but things stick to them, and they're a carnivorous plant.
It is time for a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about some of our fruit trees and plants. We'll see you then. Hello, and we are back with Let's Grow There. I'm Laurel Stone, joined by Nick Deemer of the Plant Bar. We just finished talking about carnivorous plants, and now we are moving on to fruit trees. So you have some at the store. It's more exotic. They're a little, in Ohio, you don't necessarily think that you're going to have banana trees in your yard, right? But it's possible.
That is a possibility, absolutely. So whenever we're going to talk about fruit trees, I do talk about the regular Ohio fruit trees, apple, peaches, plums, pears, blueberries, raspberries, all that fun stuff. But kind of what I am going to focus on here is more of like tropical fruit-bearing trees. So one of my favorite fruit trees to grow is a fig tree, just because for apples, peaches, plums, the tree has to be anywhere from 6, possibly 8 years old to start flowering and start making fruit. Whereas fig trees, you can actually get a decent crop of figs in a matter of 2 to 3 years from a small little cutting. What's wonderful about figs as well too is they're almost cold hardy for Ohio. So if you plant them in the ground, they get beat up pretty bad by the cold. But what I do at home is I just take my fig tree in a pot, put it into an unheated garage over the winter, roll it back out in the spring, and it puts out new leaves and starts making fruit again. It's a very fun plant to grow with not a lot of time committed to it, and especially because generally it's easier to grow them in a container rather than plant them in the ground. So you can move it around, you can take it places. If you move houses or anything, you can take that fig tree with you. I know people who have had fig trees for decades, actual decades, and they just roll them around, and it's almost like a little family member.
So these are the fig trees you were talking about. They're really small now. How long is it going to take until they can grow and produce fruit?
Fig trees are actually a pretty fast-growing plant. These are probably, well, this is a 1-year-old plant from a cutting root, so whenever I got them in a couple months ago, they were probably about half this size, I would say. By the end of the season, especially if you put them outside, you could probably expect them to be about up here. Next year on top of that, they grow about maybe 2-3 feet a year once they get going. So it could be about a 3-foot tall plant or so in about 2 seasons or so. And the fun thing about them too is they don't take a long time to start producing fruit.
Now, having it in the pot, does it stunt growth at all and limit production?
Great question. As far as figs, essentially to answer your question, technically, yes. However, well, nothing's going to, if you plant anything in the ground, it's going to grow better just because there's always that consistent water it can pull from the ground. The roots can essentially get as large as they want to. So to answer your question, yes. However, if it's in a container, you won't see a noticeable difference. Another thing too is you kind of want them to be a little stunted because a fig tree planted in the ground where they're supposed to grow, they can get 35, 40 foot tall. So you don't want that because you have to bring it in your house or your garage. So generally speaking, and it is a pretty fast growing tree, they can grow, once they get going, they'll grow about 2-3 feet a year or so. So it does, technically it stunts the growth, but it's not a bad problem to have. Another fun fact about figs is they also produce 2 crops of fruit a year. You get a spring crop and then you actually get a fall crop. Whereas, every other fruit tree around us, you get its apple season in the fall, and that's about it. But yeah, and another fun thing about them too is whenever, it's going to be hard to kind of explain with these ones, but whenever they do get figs, they just kind of like pop them off the stems of the plant.
That's
so
interesting.
you get a big fig that's just kind of hanging off. It's not really like a flower that turns into a fruit. It just end up producing figs.
What are some other plants that you have that grow in pots, can go indoors, in and out like that?
Oh, absolutely. I suppose I'll call them patio fruits because generally speaking, you'll keep them in containers just because you are going to have to bring them inside over the winter. Figs are pretty much the one exception where they're almost cold hardy around here, but not quite. Most of the other tropical fruits I can talk about, they are definitely tropical, like essentially banana trees. Like banana trees, guavas, mangoes, Barbados cherries, kiwis, avocados, stuff like that. They are definitely more tropical plants. So you can keep them outside spring, summer, fall, but you absolutely have to bring them into, I should say, they don't like temperatures around 40s, like mid 40s or so. So you definitely want to protect those ones much more compared to a fig.
Now over here, these are some different leaves, so tell me what you've got with this one.
This is a fun one. This is actually coffee. This is where your coffee beans come from. Arabica coffee.
Would it have any smell to it now?
The leaves do not. They actually smell very grassy as far as the leaves, but don't they have a wonderful glossy green leaf to them?
They almost look like poison ivy with the shine to them. That's what I was worried.
Yep. I could make a killing here. Yeah, coffee, this is where the beans come from. They, kind of like a fruit tree, an apple tree I would compare them to, they do have to be a certain maturity to start producing flowers and then fruits. I wouldn't expect coffee beans off of these guys for quite a few years.
Yeah.
5-6 years or so.
What is the appeal of having fruit trees in your yard?
Well, fruit trees in your yard, as far as, apples, peaches, plums, pears, the ones that just regularly grow around here. It's for me to go on a walk with my kid and go and just see how the trees are doing. We did it yesterday. I'm going to have a bountiful harvest of apples and pears this year. However, I am not going to have a single peach. Depends on what happens in the season. That's a different story and whatnot. But even just seeing them grow is the The aesthetic of it, the dopamine of seeing, wow, I grew this peach, I grew these apples. And another thing too is a lot of fruit bearing plants, they are attractive plants. They're aesthetically pleasing. So apples. Oh, everyone knows crab apples. They have those beautiful flowers in the spring. Apple trees get the same kind of flowers, except they get the fruit on them, and that's why people make crab apples, because they don't leave as big of a mess. Because walking under my tree, whenever it's when all the apples are on there, it's easy to twist an ankle, I would say. But they do have a great aesthetic appeal. They can, they get usually white flowers, blush pink flowers in the spring, depending on what species they are. And then in the fall, leaves usually turn, like for pear trees, they turn like a wonderful red. The leaves turn a wonderful red color in the fall too. So there's many different reasons. Another fun thing too with tropical plants and most things that we have at the store is people want to grow the things that they shouldn't be able to grow. So people in Florida, they want to grow peach trees and apple trees, and they can't down there because there's no winter peaches, apples. They have to go through that winter dormancy. So people in Florida want to grow the Ohio plants, and people in Ohio want to grow the Florida plants. So people want to grow what they shouldn't be able to grow.
Isn't that always how it works?
It's people want what you can't have. Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone, stay tuned. We have to take a real quick break. Then we'll be right back to keep on talking about some cool plants. We'll see you then. Hello, and we are back, diving right back in with Nick Deemer at the Plant Bar.
So a lot of fruit-bearing things, especially in the tropical world of fruits, they don't essentially have to be like a tree, how a lot of people imagine how, apples, peaches grow as well too. Like these are prickly pear cactus. I don't know if you've ever had like, everything's flavored prickly pear now, they're very trendy right now. But these big cactuses, they actually get a lovely yellow flower on them, and then once they get pollinated, they turn into the prickly pear fruit, which is, the fruit's actually it's like a magenta hot pink kind of color. It's a very pretty looking fruit as well too. So even though, especially in the world of tropical fruits, like dragon fruit grows from a cactus. And even every time I order a new batch of tropical fruit plants, I can't really call them tree, I suppose, it's wonderful to see how they actually come from. Like I remember the first time I saw pineapples growing. Pineapples actually grow on like a bush, and then they get a big stalk that comes out, and then the pineapple comes on top. I always thought they grew on trees, right? I really didn't know where they grew. Like I have a guava bush over there as well too. I had no idea where guavas came from until I acquired that one. So it's really cool to see what produces fruit, where actual fruits come from, because you don't really have to, you always think of tree,
Is that the little bloom back in that corner here, or is that that might be a new growth? Oh.
That might be a flower, actually. This size plant is absolutely old enough to flower, to start producing fruit. For something about this size, it'll take a few years to get actual flowers and fruits on it.
So what do you do when it does flower?
Admire the flower. Once it's the flower, essentially for any fruits, as long as things flower and they're pollinated, if they're pollinated, that's what makes them turn into fruit. So as long as a bee or a pollinator, doesn't have to be a bee, it could be a fly, it could be a wasp, it could be, as long as the pollen gets mixed around and whatnot, that will eventually turn into a fruit.
For people, I'm guessing this has to be inside because it's a cactus, right? Or outside in the summer?
So funny enough, this is a complete oddball one. You can actually plant these in the ground, they'll come back every year.
Even here, with our frigid winters?
Even here, yes. I was just driving past a house in Struthers the other day, and they have a whole patch of prickly pears. They kind of take over, believe it or not. I mean, it's in their landscape. It is a patch of prickly pear cactus, and yeah, as far as them flowering and fruiting, I wouldn't really expect it, just because they do need a longer growing season to actually produce like a ripened fruit. So if you're going for the fruit aspect of it, I would keep it in a container, bring it inside so you can prolong the growing season.
Would you need to hand pollinate in that case if you have it inside?
If you wanted to, yes. The more pollination, the better too. If you see flowers or anything, take a Q-tip and brush them and spread the pollen around as well. And that goes for, you can do that with apple trees, pear trees. If it's a flower, they like pollen. That's what makes fruit.
In the term of plants that can be used for drinks, you have a couple other ones here, isn't that right?
Yes. These are juniper bonsais, actually. But juniper is actually will produce a berry, and the berries are used to make gin. The more you know.
How big does it have to be? Because that's a little baby.
Oh, this is a little baby for now. There's all different kinds of junipers as well too. Some will grow upright and bushy like a tree. Some will grow tall and skinny. These guys are going to have more of like that windswept-y kind of look. But eventually they will start making the little berries, and they have that real pine smell. It's a very ginny smell. But this is where your gin comes from. And another fun one as well too is agave. This is where tequila comes from. So I just love showing people where things come from. Like, it's a tequila plant, it's a gin plant, but they actually have very nice aesthetics to them too.
So how do you get tequila from that plant? Like,
So for junipers, they make little berries. The berries are what they actually use in production. For agaves, they actually use the leaves.
Okay.
So they use of course, there's different kinds of agaves, and especially they'll grow, say in Mexico, they'll grow like fields of them, like how we grow corn around here. But they actually end up pretty much trimming off the pokey part of the leaves, and it's more of like the stalk and leaves of the plant, and then they ferment them and squish them and turn them into tequila.
That wraps up this episode. Let's grow there, and we'll see you next time.